Hello, computer science students. What we're going to look at today are methods. What you want to do is get into the class notebook under the collaboration space, find assignment 9, assignment 9A, and there's lots of code here that I'd like you to copy and put into your Java program. And then I'll explain what happens. So once you've got it in your Java program, we're going to run it and see what this new code does. So a method is really just a function. So when we did functions in Python, the idea was to organize our code by putting the work somewhere else. So your main line now is a lot shorter. The main line is going to be a little more readable. It'll be a little more in English, and the work will be done outside in the other methods. So methods, functions, procedures, all names for the same thing. Work that gets done outside of the main line. So we're just going to run it. It says type in a number. Where is this coming from? If you look at the main line, nowhere does it say type in a number. So where is this coming from? The first line that we're executing is x equals get. Get is a method. So the method get is right here. So the main line calls the method, and the program comes down here and does the work in get. And this is where we see type in a number. So that's where we are at the moment, typing in a number. We're going to type in a number and see what happens next. So we type in the number is input, and it's returned. When it's returned, it comes back to where it was called from and puts it in the variable on the left-hand side. So x now has the number 13 inside it. Now, why are we back in type in a number? The next line of code says get another number and put it in y. Get takes us to the get function, types in another number. So we're back here again. When we type in a number, it'll get stored in number and returned. And when it gets returned, it'll go into y. All right, what happened next? So x is 13. We went to get, typed in a number, put it in number, returned it. The return goes into the variable on the left. Called get again, typed in the number, typed in the number 7. 7 got returned to y. So x is 13, y is 7. All right, we're saying add the two numbers and put it in result. So add is a new method. Let's go look at add. Add is expecting two numbers to be sent to it. The two numbers we're sending are x and y, x being 13. So 13 gets sent and goes into A. 7 gets sent and goes into B. First question you might be asking yourself, why are the variables different in the main line to the method? So in the real world, when you program, different people are writing the methods from the main line, and they don't really want to have to communicate and say, well, what variables are you using? So they tend to use different ones. So it's fairly standard practice that you'll use one set of variables in your main line and a different set in your method. So what matters is they get shipped in the order that they are written. So x goes into A, y goes into B. So we've got the two numbers, 13 and 7, they get added together. The answer is sum, and that gets returned to the left-hand side. The result is now 20. We're going to print x, y, result, and the word sum. So print is a method. Let's go find the print method. The print method is right here. It's expecting 4 pieces of information. So the first piece of information in print was x. So we'll send it 13, 7, the answer for the sum, and the word sum. So when it prints it, it says the sum of 13 and 7 is 20. That's where this line comes from. So again, what happened? We called the print function with x going in here, y going in there, the sum going in for answer, and the word sum in for word. So the sum of 13 and 7 is 20. Okay, what happened next? We're back in the main line, and now we did the result of dividing x by y. That would take us to the divide function. We're sending it x and y. So x goes in for A and y goes in for B. We calculate the quotient, dividing 13 by 7. We return that to result. So result is now 1.857142. And we're sending the word quotient now to the print function. So we're sending print 13, 7, the result of the division, and the word quotient. That goes to the print function, 13, 7, the answer to the division, and the word quotient. So it'll say print the quotient of 13 and 7 is 1.857142, and that's where this comes from. So what do we need to look at here? When you set up a method, it starts with the word public. And this is where I finally explain what all this stuff is about. Because main is just a method. So public tells you that you are allowed to call these methods from anywhere in the program. If you have a collection of classes, you can call it from other classes. You can call the get function from the main function. You can call it from the add function. You can call it from wherever. Static tells you you can call the functions from within this class. Now, what is this all about? This tells you what kind of variable is being returned from your method. So we're returning a number. It is a double, and so we're returning some sort of double from this method. And when you do that, you need to have something on the left-hand side. Now, if you look at the main function, it doesn't return anything, and that's why the word void is there. So rather than leave it blank, when you have no return, you say that you're returning void. Inside the brackets are what you're sending the function. So when we call the get function, we're not sending it anything. That's why this is blank, but we return with a number. So it's like imagining get as a store. You're taking a grocery bag with nothing in it, and you're returning with a number. So your grocery bag is empty and gets an X in it when you come back from the store. The add function, on the other hand, you're going to the store with two things in your grocery bag. These are the two things. They're both doubles. And when you leave the store, you return with one thing. And that's why there's something on the left-hand side. Let's look at the divide method. It's expecting you to show up with two things and return with one. So the divide function, you need two things in the bag when you go, and you return with one. Print is very different. Let's look at the print function. It expects you to show up with 1, 2, 3, 4 things in the bag. So there's our print function with 4 things in the bag, and it doesn't return a thing. So this would be like going to the newspaper and saying, could you print this ad for me? You take information, but you don't walk away with anything. And so there's no return, and you'll notice there's nothing on the left-hand side because there's nothing you need to return it to. So when you make your methods, they always start with public, static, some kind of variable to tell us what kind of variable we're returning. So it could be a double, it could be an int, it could be a string. And if it's void, if there is no return. So if there is a return, you must specify the type of variable. If there is no return, then you tell us it's void. This is the name of your function. Name it so that we understand what it does. And then inside the brackets, the variables that it needs to do the work. So these variables it needs from the main line to do the work. You can declare some other variables within the method. So these are variables you're using within the method that you didn't need to send from the main line. We didn't know what the sum was, so we didn't send it from the main line to the method. We declared it instead inside. These ones, on the other hand, we needed to know what they were in the main line and ship them here. All right, other things you need to be aware of. The main line ends a lot earlier than it did before. This is the end of the main line. So the closing bracket for the main line is here, and then there's stuff after it. That's the first time you've seen this. Your functions always begin and end before you write a new one. So this function begins and ends before we write a new one. Function begins and ends, function begins and ends, and at the very end, we have to end the class. So when you write your methods, the more versatile they are, the better. We could have written 4 different print methods, but then that's a bit of a waste of our time. So we wrote a very generic one by sending a word, and that way we could print the sum of, the product of, the quotient of, the difference of. So the more generic they are, the better. And the other thing you have to watch out for, we can only return one thing from a function. So when you write a function, a method, you can only ever return one thing. So although we wanted 2 numbers, we couldn't ask for two numbers because we couldn't return two numbers. So what we did instead is we called the function twice. So if you needed three numbers, you'd write a get function and you'd call it 3 times. So this is known as calling the function when you ask the function to do some work for you, and this is the creation of the function. So your job today, look at the code that's been written, and you're going to write a subtract and a multiply function. So look at what we did for add. I'd probably copy paste it, change a few things and get it to work. And then make sure at the top that you call the functions and you print the result. Generally, a good function is no more than a page, because that way you can see the entire thing. And functions can be bigger than a couple of lines. So as you do the rest of assignment 9, feel free to make your functions bigger. And you'll notice I keep using the word function instead of method. They all mean the same thing.